we're back for part 2. So, yeah. So we started talking more and more, and it became like an everyday thing. We started talking to like morning to night, night to morning, and we started falling asleep on FaceTime. You know, the typical long distance thing. We started having like movie dates and stuff, which was really cool, like pretty cool. I never like the amount of effort I had to put on to make sure everything was set and good for a date.
It was complex.
It was it was different, you know. So every moment of that I cherish because like the effort we had to put on to like make things perfect was incredible.
Being in a relationship when we never ever saw each other in real life.
Yeah. But
people call us crazy.
Yeah, people thought we were like,
you never met each other, it's never gonna be the same when you see each other.
It's funny because like when I first introduced her to like my family, like my mom knew about it from the live because I was like, hey mom, look at this girl. But when we and her started talking more, I like showed like my mom, I introduced her to my mom, and it became like a habit to always have her with me because like my family really liked her. They loved her. They loved her. They like my mom was always talking to her, and like she would always get advice, and like you know she would be texting. They'd be texting each other sometimes.
Well, that was not in the beginning. The texting was later on, not in the beginning.
But anyway, my family ended up liking her. They thought it was cool. Like she spoke French, and they would like we would like joke around and try to like learn French and stuff. It was pretty nice. I mean, what would you say? Like, what would your point of view of the beginning, like when you met my mom and all that? Like, how would you?
No, overall it was good.
Describe. Okay.
Yeah, they were nice. They liked me. I mean, I got the impression they liked me. Your mom was being nice in the beginning.
Before you left?
Yeah. I got in, not in a fight, but you got in a fight with your mom, and I didn't really like the way she was speaking to you, the stuff that was said. So I just, at the time, I didn't even really say anything. I just said like to calm down, and that she said something about her being hurtful or whatever, and I knew it wasn't like that, so I just said, well, it's not like that, it's not her fault, it's not what she did or what she meant, whatever. And yeah, they came home, and her mom flipped me off, called me the B word, and said that I was not welcome anymore. And I was like literally the day before I left, so I was like, okay, this is gonna be nice.
I felt really bad when that happened. I know how my mom was and is as a person sometimes when somebody defends themselves or another person to her, like, she always, in a way, has to be right or correct. Or, you know, you can't stand up against her. Because if you do, you're never going to win, in a way. And I was really grateful she stood up for me. Like, I would have done the same with her. And I didn't think anything of it. I was like, this is my girlfriend. Like, it's normal. She's gonna stick up for me. And my mom really just took it off the deep end.
I remember my friend was sitting next to me in the bedroom when it happened, and she was looking at me. She was like, what is happening? I was like, I don't know. Yeah. Like, this is the first time. Like, I have no idea. And she said, like, whoa, like, this is wild. Like, you didn't deserve that. And I said, I know, but it's fine. You know, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I was like, worst case scenario, she'll just come pick me up alone, you know? That's the only thing that can happen that I was fine with, like, you know?
When it was mentioned that she wasn't welcome here, I was definitely like, you don't make that choice. I mean, if she was coming to my mom's house, then I understand. But I had my own apartment at the time. So that's not your choice to make. Like, if you're going to say, my girlfriend's welcome or not. And I've dealt with my mom on, like, her, what would you want to call them? Episodes? You call them episodes? I don't know how.
Kinda. I don't know if you can call it episode at this point, but I remember
my mom.
I remember the clear words that she said. So she called me the B word. She said I was never welcome here, and that she was stupid and foolish because I was just like her ex, and it was never gonna work out. Once we were gonna see each other, she would realize that it was never gonna work out, and that nobody likes me in the family anyway, so that it was never gonna work out. So that was all stuff being said in like 2 minutes, and I was like, what do you mean nobody likes me? Like, that is not the impression I got so far. But yeah.
Right. And she mentioned about my ex. I am going to bring up a little part of that. I'm not going to get too into that, but I am going to bring up my mom also. What she did in our situation, she also did to the situation with me and her. No names going to be mentioned, but what I take from this situation is I'm not going to let somebody dictate my life, who I want to be with, my happiness. And I let that happen for so long. I got walked all over, I got manipulated, and that's a whole nother story. But when it came to her, I was like, no, I am not going through this again. I am not going through this again. And truth to be said, she nothing like my ex. And it's not my ex was a bad person or anything. My mom just did not like her. And the same story is kind of repeating now. And that's definitely something that...
But that's for later.
Yeah.
So I then, after a hell of a ride, missing flights, having to wait for hours and stuff, I finally arrived. And I remember on the last flight, I was first of all exhausted. And I started feeling really unwell. So I was like, I'm just so tired. That's probably why. And then I arrived stressed out because she just texted me like, hey, my mom is here with me. And I was like, oh my goodness, she is gonna just kill me like right at the moment. And I arrived and came down the stairs. And I remember I was talking with that couple that I met on the way to Pittsburgh. They were really nice people. Mm-hmm. And I remember seeing her mom smiling and be like, oh, welcome. And I was like, oh, okay, nice. You know what? Forget about it. Like, fine. Like, I didn't have the energy to be like, well, that happened yesterday and now you're like completely different. I was like, I'm just gonna let it slide. Like, I don't even want to get into that. She was super nice, hugging me and then telling me that she was hiding, so that like I got like behind her, and then that was like the first time we saw each other. But like I said, I was really, really tired, and I didn't have to wait for my luggage. No, it was already there, and by that time it was almost like 2 a.m, I think.
Yeah, so we hopped in the truck. My mom and my brother sat in the back seat, and my mom let her sit up in the passenger seat with me.
And she handed me food, like a salad, because they thought that I didn't, that they didn't give me any food on the plane, but they do. So she handed me the food, and I was like, thank you. I was happy and like surprised they did that. I was really grateful. But I was like not really hungry, but I didn't want to disrespect them. So I opened it and like took a bite of the salad. It was just a regular salad with chicken. And I just remember putting it in my mouth and be like, oh my God, I'm gonna throw up. Like, I couldn't swallow it. I was trying so hard to swallow it, but I just couldn't. I just felt like I'm gonna get sick. I'm gonna start throwing up. And those people know me for like literally 2 minutes. And I closed the thing, I took a napkin and tried to be like as smooth as possible to take out the food out of my mouth, put it away, And I was like, oh, you know what? I'm just too tired. I'm not really hungry. I'll eat it later. But really, I was on the verge of throwing up in the car, and I just had to drink some water, focus on the road, because there were like 3 times where I felt it come up, and I was like, you cannot start throwing up now. That is gonna be so embarrassing. So yeah, that was that. I was sitting next to her. We didn't kiss at all.
I was definitely quiet the whole time.
Yeah.
Like drive halfway home. The only thing I did was grab her hand, and
Yeah, you grabbed my hand, and that was about it.
I didn't say like a word or anything. And then when we arrived home,
we arrived at her mom's home, because apparently we were gonna stay at her mom's home, which I didn't know, but I kind of understood because it was late and they went with us for the drive, so we stayed over there.
Yeah, and yeah. And then the next day started. It was a good day. My mom came in and I was like, hey.
It was not a good day. I was sick.
Yeah.
I ended up being like actually sick, so what I was feeling on the last plane and in the car, I literally caught the flu during the flight. So I was, the first 3 days I was there, I was throwing up my whole soul, and
that was after we left we left my mom's house, like literally.
Yeah, because I wasn't feeling well.
Yeah.
And we had to go to a barbecue like that same day, and I was like, I can't do that. And her mom was like, oh, you're coming. And so I was like, okay, I'll just try. And after like, I think an hour, not even an hour, I told her, I said like, I can't, like, I'm gonna throw up. I really don't feel good. And her mom didn't really think I was sick. She just thought that I didn't want to be there, but that was really not the case. Well, obviously I was tired and jet lagged. Like, that's something that
like
she couldn't understand, which I can understand because she never like went from the one side of the world to the other. So when you don't know what a jet lag is, it's really hard to understand that it does take a lot of your body. So I ended up going back to the apartment, which was just across the street, and starting throwing up like my whole soul, like everything. And I was sick for 3 days. And we ended up going to the doctor, and yeah, I got meds and stuff. He said, well, you have the flu, so you'll have to like sit and wait 3 days. I was like, great.
Yeah. What I was saying about my mom earlier during the day, we were at my mom's house. I had my mom come in and take a picture of us sleeping, like, you know, the first night, first morning, I mean. And Riley was sleeping with us. And it was awesome. Like, I could tell my mom was like, she was like another person, you know? She was very like happy and stuff, for sure.
That's it.
And that's it. Now, if you want to be here for part 3, I suggest you to be here tomorrow.
And to follow.
And follow. Yes, follow, because there's a lot more juicy stories coming up.